Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rocket NXT 4.9 webinar. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. There's a red arrow that you can click to minimize or maximize the GoToWebinar control box in case you find that that box is getting in the way of the presentation. There's also a questions box where you can type in and send us your questions, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the session during the Q&A portion. If we don't happen to get to your question during the webinar, we will follow up with you individually. And we'll also be making the slides and this recording available after the meeting ends. So by way of introductions, my name is Gary Mumford. I'm the Managing Director at Rocket for Rocket's Enterprise Search and Text Analytics products. We also have Aaron Reed on the line. Aaron is our sales engineer and enterprise search guru, and will be showing us the demo portion of today's webinar. So today we're going to cover what's new in NXT 4.9. We'll go over some of the release highlights. The release date is actually today. We'll talk about where you can download the release. We're going to go over a demo. You can see Aaron will show the demo, show NXT 4.9 live in action. We'll talk a little bit about the upgrade process and resources available. And then again, we'll follow up with a Q&A portion at the end of the meeting. So let's get into the release highlights. This is a pretty big release for us. We're all very excited about this release. We'll be covering not everything that's in this release, but just the major items. First and foremost is 64-bit. We also have an embedded PDF viewer that uses pdf.js. We've implemented support for content management interoperability services, or CMIS. We've added open office document indexing and search. We've improved accessibility for Section 508 compliance. We've spent a lot of time improving the performance of NXT. And we've also included a new template upgrade utility. So NXT 64-bit is here. We've been working on this release for quite some time. We've done it in parallel with other releases, but this is about 2 years in the making. It really offers better integration with and compatibility with IIS. We've tested and certified it for use on Windows Server 2012. And because it's 64-bit, it also allows you to utilize all of your server's memory. The 32-bit version of NXT was restricted to only using 3 gigabytes of RAM, with 1 gigabyte being reserved for IIS. This version allows you to utilize all your server's memory. So it really allows you to provide more processing power to your users and to allow you to ingest larger content sets. I mentioned an embedded PDF viewer, pdf.js. pdf.js is a standards-based written in JavaScript PDF rendering engine. What it allows you to do is to view PDF files seamlessly on any browser that supports JavaScript and from any device. Previously, PDFs were handled in really a variety of different ways. It depended on what was installed on the client's machine. Did they have Adobe Reader? If they did, was the plugin enabled? And what version of Adobe Reader did they have? And what version of Windows did it have? It was very clunky to work with, and it left users with an inconsistent user experience for PDF content as compared to HTML or XML content. On top of this, the document, the buttons in the document toolbar, like in showing and hiding hit highlights and the next and previous hit, those commands didn't work because basically because the plugin got in the way. But with PDF.js, PDF content now displays seamlessly. You don't have to worry about clunky browser plugins. Hit highlighting will always work, and the buttons in the toolbar behave the same as they do for non-PDF content. NXT now supports the CMIS protocol. CMIS is a standards-based protocol for content management systems. It is becoming the de facto standard for communicating between content management systems. And it allows you to manage your site's content and repositories over a network, even without having NXT installed. It communicates over SOAP, which is also an open standard, and it allows you to quickly develop third-party content, quickly develop plugins into third-party content management systems. We have included a command line utility. It's called CMIS client.exe, which demonstrates how to perform almost every content network manager task via the command line. So even if you're not implementing a new plugin or writing to the CMIS API, you can still use this utility to automate and script common tasks when working with NXT. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I thought it was important to show you just the high-level architecture for CMIS. You can see the green box is the IIS web server, and normally requests come in, HTTP requests come in, they're fed through IIS and into NXT's app pool through the gateway DLL, and then processed by various other NXT4 executive components. We've added CMIS as a separate app pool that runs as a service that is designed to specifically handle CMIS requests. It communicates with NXT via NXT's COM components to service those requests. And those requests can come from the CMIS client. They can come from an Apache CMIS workbench, which is a great developer tool if you're looking to develop your own plugin. And again, it allows you to browse and edit your site structure. You can add content collections as a whole, or you can add documents themselves to an existing collection. If you're interested in CMIS and you want to explore it further, when you install NXT, be sure to select the custom install in order to enable CMIS. You'll see an option about whether or not to enable CMIS. We've also added support for open office document. We've seen a lot of growth in terms of usage of open office, especially in South America and Germany and in various government organizations. And so we've added the ability to index and search open office documents. We've also spent some time improving accessibility. Rocket is committed to making our technologies accessible to individuals with disabilities in accordance with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. NXT is compatible with Section 508 compliance. We've tested it with a utility called FireEyes, which looks at the HTML code and flags anything that is not compliant. We've also tested it with JAWS screen reader to make sure that the content on screen is read correctly. We've even gone a little further to make sure that NXT conforms to WCAG standards, which is a standard that goes a little bit further than Section 508. It goes a little further in improving accessibility. We've updated our documentation to include information about accessibility, and we've also implemented as well as documented existing keyboard shortcuts. So now we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the performance improvements in NXT 4.9. We spent quite a bit of time on this. NXT was already a very performant search engine, but we spent a lot of time and we're able to squeeze out a lot more performance. The default NXT site now loads about 3 times faster when you're loading the whole frame set. We've implemented HTTP caching. What that does is that it sets an HTTP header in the response back to the browser saying this document is a static document, it's not going to change, so you don't need to re-request this document every time you visit this page. And that really reduces the number of requests to the NXT server and speeds up overall loading. But even without HTTP caching, the site still loads from scratch 3 times faster due to various other improvements, one of which is that we've implemented asynchronous talk requests. So rather than request the table of contents to be populated in series, we now issue multiple requests at the same time and get the results back so we can display the table of contents more quickly. We've improved indexing times by 15%. Queries are 20% faster with up to 5 times more throughput. And keywords in context or words around hits when you're viewing search results now load faster for frequent query terms. We've also optimized our content encoding algorithms. So whether your content's UTF-8 or ANSI or Unicode, we've made improvements to our content encoding algorithms to make them much faster. This is a graph showing the ranked search throughput. We picked ranked search because it's between Boolean search and ranked search. Ranked is much slower than Boolean because we need to calculate calculate the relevance for each hit in the result set. Going along the y-axis, we have response time in milliseconds, and along the x-axis, we have the number of ranked queries per second handled by the NXT server. These figures are measured on the client side, not on the server side. So there is network overhead. This is also a worst case scenario in that when we test, we actually test every term. We do a query for every term in the content set. And when we do that, we actually bypass our query caching in effect. So you should actually see results much better than what's shown here. But you can see in NXT 4.8, the purple line, for 1 terabyte of content, you could do about 10 queries per second with a response time of 1 second, or 25 queries per second with a response time of 2.7 seconds, which is really too slow. With NXT 4.9, you can see the blue line. We can do about 65 queries per second with a response time of 1 second or less. That said, Aaron will show a demo where you'll see queries faster than what's shown here. The reason for that is this was measured on a quad-core machine, and search throughput is heavily dependent on CPU resources. So the more CPUs you throw at it, the more queries per second you can handle. This is a graph showing the indexing throughput in terms of megabytes per second, and you can see again NXT 4.8 versus 4.9. There's about a 15% improvement in indexing throughput, which can really make a big difference in build times when you're building larger content sets. So upgrading from NXT 4.8 to 4.9, we've implemented a new template upgrade utility to ease upgrading. Many of you likely have customized HTML templates. You've rebranded it to match your own company's look and feel. It can take a lot of work to go through the templates and rebrand them. And with every release, we're constantly doing bug fixes for different browsers. We're adding new features to the template sets. It can be difficult to apply those changes. For example, with PDF.js, if you're not interested or you're not hosting PDF content, then you probably don't have a need, or it's probably not warranted for you to go through all of the templates and incorporate those PDF.js changes. So we've created a utility to help make that easier. The utility automatically upgrades your existing customized templates. It incorporates bug fixes and minor enhancements while also retaining your customization. So for each bug fix, if we change 4 lines of code in an HTML file, then we detect what that block looked like before in NXT 4.8, and if it looks the same in your customized template, then we update that block of code. If it doesn't look the same, then we flag it as a conflict and let you know exactly where it is so that you can look at it and determine if you want to incorporate the changes or retain your customization. We've also included a side-by-side diff file that shows the differences between the standard NXT 4.8 templates and the new NXT 4.9 templates. So this allows you to go through manually and see what we've changed. Because we do a lot of changes to the templates with each release, it's really important that you stay up to date version by version and incorporate bug fixes to the templates with each release. Otherwise, you can build up a lot of changes to the point where when you compare the new templates with your existing templates, there's too many changes to go through and it's too confusing. So I would really encourage you all to go through this process. Rocket is here to help. We have tech support is here to help. Our Rocket business partners are also here to help. And stay up to date with the templates. One thing to note is that for major enhancements, PDF.js being one of them, we have excluded major enhancements from the template upgrade utility. We've also excluded a couple of other things. These things are documented in the product README. So if you have existing customized templates, you need to run the template upgrade utility. You can then decide, do I want PDF.js or not, and go through and incorporate changes for the larger enhancements. But the idea here is if you just want bug fixes and new binaries, and you don't want to go through a complete rework of your templates, you now have an easier way of doing that. Because NXT 4.8 is 32-bit and NXT 4.9 is 64-bit, we have been careful to make sure that the API is backward compatible. Any 32-bit custom access control module that was built for NXT 4.8, that remains compatible with the 32-bit version of NXT 4.9. But if you wish to use the 64-bit version of NXT 4.9, which I highly encourage you to use, all that is required is a simple recompile of your existing code. The API hasn't changed. It's just the libraries, some of the headers have changed. But you just need to recompile, and then you'll be good to go. A small note about content collections themselves. We actually changed the compression algorithm that's used in our content collections. We had to because what we were using was only supported on 32-bit. We now use gzip, which is both 32 and 64-bit compatible. With that change, some of you may have content collections that were built using the best compression setting. By default, compression is not enabled. So if you haven't changed the setting, you don't need to worry about anything. If you use good compression, so you had either no compression, good, or best, If you use good compression, then there's also no need to worry about it. But if by chance you did use the best compression, then when you add your content collections to NXT 4.9, it will automatically recompress or rebuild your content for you, which is actually pretty seamless. So without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Aaron to show us a live demo of NXT 4.9.
Thank you, Gary. Everyone, I appreciate you taking the time to join our webinar today. We're going to start off things with the PDF comparison. So one of the things that Gary alluded to is an inconsistent user experience when they attempt to view a PDF document inside of NXT. So what we're looking at here is the NXT 4.8 default template set. And over here I have a PDF file of IRS security tax guidelines underneath their policy and procedure information. So one thing that happens a lot of users when they hit a PDF, especially if they're on a brand new computer, they'll see a page like this. I don't have Acrobat installed on this particular machine, so the user doesn't know what to do with this file, and it kind of jars them, it breaks the user experience. They don't know what to do, or maybe they now need to go download Adobe Acrobat and install it, and then finally be able to view the PDF that was available to them. So we'll just cancel that, but that's something that creates kind of that unfavorable experience for your users. With NXT 4.9, we now have the PDF.js feature, so I can request that same PDF on the same machine, which we know doesn't have Acrobat installed, and we get the PDF immediately. So a couple of important things to point out. This document is 178 pages long. Anytime you use a PDF file and you have Acrobat installed, when it comes to a big PDF document, it takes a while to get all those pages streamed to the plugin. Whereas with PDF.js, the PDF is being rendered through JavaScript, which is a lot faster in bringing in this larger document to your users. So in terms of user experience, you'll get a much more universal behavior, whether you're using smartphones or iOS devices, iPads, or Android tablets, or desktop browsers, any flavor. You're going to have a much better experience with PDF.js and your PDF-based content. So let's do a quick search here. Let's just search for this word here. We're going to just copy that, and we're going to do an advanced search, and we'll just narrow it down to just that section, and we'll get back our results. And again, you get what you expect. You see multiple terms will be clickable. We'll click one of these, and we'll jump down into that result set. And so here's our first result on page number 1. With Adobe Acrobat, these buttons up here were meaningless. They couldn't operate or be usable inside the PDF. However, with PDF.js, we can now finally use these buttons to navigate our results and move upward and downward within that document. So this is a really nice bonus. And you can see the terms are highlighted in your position, and we're able to use these previous and next matches to move upward and downward. And you can still use highlights to toggle those on or off. So maybe if I need to print this document and I don't want those highlights in there, that's very easy to turn that off. Or if you've got a lot of terms highlighted, maybe you search for something that's very common in the PDF document and it makes it challenging to read, you can just turn those back off. So this makes things a much more seamless user experience. So I'm really excited to have everyone get their hands on this version and have access to PDF.js. So the next bit we're going to take a quick look at is the, let me jump over to this other server that's running NXT 4.9. when you install NXT 4.9, you see a new template directory, ENU 4.8 updates. So this new template directory contains all the changes that would be merged back into your 4.9 templates. In here we have our diff directory that Gary was talking about, as well as a patch utility that you can run that will merge the bug fixes into your custom template set from this directory, and as well as flagging any changes that maybe there's too many changes on a given section. It will flag it and allow you to take the action that you want, whether you either ignore it and skip it, or you go ahead and merge it, or you leave it for later to manually investigate further. So this is where you will find that patch utility. Again, it's under the templates ENU 4.8 updates directory, and then finally inside the diff. And this will allow you to take those corrective actions. We also have a README in here to give you a little bit more documentation information before you begin that process. The third piece that we're going to look at real quick is the CMIS piece. So let me jump over. We're going to go ahead and minimize that. What we're going to do, I'm going to first delete this tax guidelines collection through Content Network Manager. Go ahead and save our changes, so that's no longer on the site. We have added a right-click utility to the Windows shell. It's basically just a registry change calling a batch file that's going to run our CMIS client.exe command that will allow us to highlight a content collection. So it's context sensitive. So here's a makefile. I have my own options for the makefile, but if I right-click the NXT file, I see I have other options such as add and remove. Add and remove have been updated to use a CMIS client to now add this collection automatically to my online server website. Whoops, I've already got it in that directory, so let me delete that from the directory real quick. Sorry about that. So I believe it's under program data, and we're just going to delete that file so we don't have a duplicate here, and we'll run that again. So now we're removing that from the system, and we'll run that command again. So let's click add. It is now added to the site. So let's go back to Content Network Manager. We're going to refresh the view, and that IRS content collection is now available. So now we're going to leave that there, and let's say I need to take this back off the site. I can now use this remove command. Again, this is calling the CMIS client batch file, and I could do this on a machine that doesn't have NXT installed, and this communicates through SOAP to the IIS machine that's hosting the website, and that is now taken away from my site. So this gives you some really awesome automation capabilities through using this new command line utility. You can see IRS is now taken away from that site. So we're going to do one more bit here, and we're going to add the NXT documentation. So let me just jump over to that real quick, and we're going to add that collection to the site using the same utility. So I believe it's under doc. We're going to add this content collection. Let's click add. That's now added to my site. Again, we'll come over, we're going to do a quick refresh. And now we have our NXT4 documentation online. So real quickly why I added that, I just want to point out, so we're going to get an error when I refresh this site because I'm looking at a document that doesn't exist anymore. So now we'll just refresh. And inside our NXT documentation, we have a new section. Actually, let's just do a search for it. That covers all the CMIS information that I strongly recommend everyone take a moment of their time to check this out. And there's lots of new information as well as how to use the client utility and what's possible there. But it really gives you some great flexibility that wasn't possible in older versions of NXT, or I should say maybe more challenging to accomplish those same kinds of tasks. So the last bit we're going to do we're going to do the performance review. And what we have, I'm going to take these two collections offline on each server. I'm going to show you a real-time site hammering against NXT 4.8 and NXT 4.9. And I have 4 content collections, 250 gigabytes each, on both servers. So we have a terabyte of data on these 2 servers. This one is 4.8, the server is 4.9, and we're going to use a 3rd server here that's going to run Apache JMeter. So this is a great open source utility that allows you to send a lot of queries really quickly at your target server. So we have a series of advanced queries and Boolean queries that these scripts will run, and we're going to use 25 user threads. And to be clear, these mimic users, but they're harsher than a real user. So as soon as a thread sends a query, and it gets the response back from the server, it immediately sends the next query. So it will continue to do that work as fast as possible. So it's much more aggressive than a real user would be against an NXT server. So we're really going to be hammering these 2 machines. And we're going to be able to track real time. I have an open source utility here that's taking data from JMeter through a database, and we'll be able to see what performance results we get on these 2 servers. So let's go ahead and start these hammers, and we're spinning up those 25 threads immediately, and let's get both of them going. And we'll it takes maybe 15 to 20 seconds for that information to start showing up here, and we'll start seeing how these 2 track on these servers. So we'll see 2 colors. The amber or orangish looking color here will be NXT 4.8, and the green one will be for NXT 4.9. So right away, you can see in the top section here is our queries per second, and the bottom section is our response time in milliseconds. So right away we can tell that NXT 4.9 is really high performance here. NXT 4.8 is only doing about 6 queries per second, whereas NXT 4.9 against the same data, 1 terabyte of data, at around 86 to as high as 94 queries per second. So it's a much higher yield of performance. On the lower section here, we can see our response times. NXT 4.8 is really being pounded, and it's struggling to perform admirably. So we're looking at almost 12 seconds of latency between a query and the response time, whereas NXT 4.9 is around half a second, 400 milliseconds. So we're very quick, and we're high throughput against a large volume of data, and it's a very effective performance gain. So we'll let this run for a little bit. I just wanted to do this in real time to show users what real gains you'll see on NXT 4.9. Again, as Gary had mentioned earlier, this is considered a worst case scenario. So we're pounding these servers, we're nearly maxing out the CPUs to make these machines work as hard as possible. Your real world results will be even better because your users will do a query, they'll do some other work, they'll review or research a document, they'll do other things on the site rather than just trying to send as many queries as rapidly as possible against those servers. So with that, that's the bulk of what I wanted to show. If you've got any questions relating to performance or the testing that we're doing of the data sets, just to clarify on these servers, these content collections are comprised of HTML documents. So these are all HTML. Each one has their own unique terms within them that we generated. So none of the queries that you're seeing in our graphs are cached queries. These are all unique queries. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn the time back over to Gary, and we'll wrap this up.
Great, thanks, Aaron. So what's next for NXT? the next release, we plan on simplifying the UI a little bit. We have a document toolbar and then another toolbar on top of that. We've been working with our user experience team here at Rocket to help simplify the UI. We'll also be implementing support for Office Web App. Office Web App is a server you can download for free from Microsoft that allows you to display Office documents via a web browser. So just as we did with PDF.js, we're doing the same thing with Office documents and getting those to display seamlessly. We are also going to implement additional features in the UI, such as a query map. Many of you that are using Folio love the query dialog that's included in Folio, because as you type, you can see your query results. You can see how many times the word occurs and what happens when you search for like dog and cat. You can see the number of results for both, and then when they're ANDed together, you can see the results for the just the documents containing both. We've had a lot of requests for that. We plan on implementing that. We've also had requests for predictive search or query type ahead, so that as you're typing a query in the query box, you get that automatic blow in where you don't have to type the whole query, just as you see in Google. These are just a few of the features that we know we're going to implement. This release, the next release, we plan on having a quicker turnaround time. But as always, we really depend on your feedback. You can, what you need from NXT to make your life easier or to solve more problems for you. You can email requests at the email listed there. You can also log into the customer portal and log defects and enhancement requests. And at Rocket, we're really a customer-driven development company. So we really place a very high priority on your requests. So I would encourage and ask you all to give us as much feedback as you can. Again, you can download this release via the customer portal. As long as you're on maintenance, there's no extra charge for this release. You can use your same product keys. There's also a README file that's available for download. I would encourage you all to review that README file. It has a little more information than what we've covered here. And again, you can contact us at the email listed there. So that concludes our webinar. We'll now open it up for a Q&A session. You're all on mute, but if you have any questions, please enter them into the questions box and we'll get them answered. So we have a question, can you upgrade easily from versions prior to 4.8? The answer is no, the template patch utility will only support one version back. that's why it's so important that you remain up to date with each version. Otherwise, you'll accumulate too many changes, and when you go to do a diff, there's too much to wade through. So even going forward, when we release NXT 4.10, the template patch utility is only going to support one version back, NXT 4.9. That said, you can easily install the new version, NXT 4.9. You can use your old content collections, and you can use your old templates with NXT 4.9. It's not, we don't encourage that because we've made so many fixes to the templates, but you can certainly use the new binaries and other features that way. Another question, can you specify which site or view you want to target when adding a collection via the right-click method? So the right-click utility that you saw, the CMIS command that it's calling is included in this version of NXT, but the actual right-click functionality is not part of the full product. That said, we're happy to give you instructions for setting up that same right-click behavior. But the answer is yes, you can specify which site or view you want to target through, it's a parameter on the command line. And you'd also need to modify the right-click behavior to allow you to select that. That whole right-click behavior is actually just implemented via simple registry changes. All right, well, if there's no more questions, we thank you all for joining and for using or being interested in NXT. Again, reach out to us if you have any questions, any requests for product improvements. We're here to help. Thank you. Have a great day.